UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, have been a subject of human interest for centuries. Ancient peoples, observing mysterious lights in the sky, believed that gods had visited them on Earth. In the modern world, UFOs are perceived either as manifestations of intelligent life forms from other worlds or as secret government flying apparatuses. There exists a narrow circle of convinced, sometimes fanatical, individuals attempting to unravel the UFO phenomenon. They refer to thousands of instances of these objects appearing throughout history. Their main opponent is the American military, which, according to UFO researchers, systematically withholds information about unidentified flying objects. The government, many believe, does everything possible to protect secret military projects and conceal extraterrestrial technologies from the public. In March 1997, over Phoenix, Arizona, thousands of people witnessed inexplicable lights in the sky. Some of them were convinced that a giant alien spacecraft flew over them. At the same time, 2 women reported a collision with a military spacecraft on the highway a few kilometers from Houston. After this incident, they experienced serious health problems. Questions about whether these observers have evidence of contacts with UFOs and whether the United States government truly safeguards information about aliens remain open. Perhaps these facts will forever remain in the archives under the heading "Unresolved." In mid-March 1997, many residents of Phoenix noticed strange lights in the sky that could be observed every evening around 9 o'clock for a week. UFO researchers eagerly followed these lights, while mobile phones, internet websites, and pagers spread the news of the unusual events. Observer Tom King, having brought along an advanced video camera of his own invention, headed to the Indian reservation on Ridge Hill, from where the best view of the lights could be seen. He recalls, "I was looking into the distance, and after 15 minutes, one light appeared right there. I immediately realized that it was not a spacecraft, but what exactly it was, I did not know." When the first light appeared, the group quickly descended to retrieve video equipment. "We went back up with a telescope, binoculars, and just in case, a whole set of weapons," he adds. Soon the lights appeared again, and there were more of them. A minute later, some woman shouted, "Look, there's another one. I didn't know which of these lights to film." They were far from each other, but then they began to appear one after another. It was an exceptional sight, something one could see only once in a lifetime. Tom describes the objects as bright orange spheres, but what was astonishing was that they did not illuminate the surrounding space. "I want to say that they were not sacred, not at all," he emphasizes. "Do you see that? Look, I see a third one, there it is. Look, and here are 4 already, yes, yes." There are so many of them. The whole sky is filled with them. Calls reporting this unusual phenomenon were received at the Phoenix Police Department at the number 911. "We had a lot of calls that evening. In such situations, people do not know whom to turn to," notes a police representative. "The first number that comes to their mind is 911. The police could not confirm any connection with Air Force maneuvers or secret programs. Citizens of Phoenix also called Luke Air Force Base to find out if this strange phenomenon was related to aviation activities. The Air Force did not provide comments, but the Arizona National Security Service stated that it had not planned any maneuvers that evening, and its radars did not detect anything unusual in the sky. Despite this denial, the Phoenix Police Department continued to assert that the military must know something. To the east of Phoenix lies New Mexico, and to the west is California. Many rockets are launched in these states, and in good weather, they can be seen from many kilometers away. However, if someone notices something unexplained in the sky, it is most likely rockets. But such an explanation did not satisfy many residents. Frances Barwood, a member of the Phoenix City Council, decided to raise this issue at the next meeting. She noted, "I am receiving numerous phone calls regarding the lights in Phoenix. People are interested in the authorities' response to this phenomenon. They have accumulated many questions for the authorities. I think it is necessary to find out if anyone is conducting an investigation into what happened in our city. We must take this issue seriously, as the residents are concerned. They are seeking answers to their questions, and most importantly, they want to know the truth. I believe they have the right to do so. I strongly recommend that you address this matter. After her speech, silence fell in the hall, and the council members did not react to her proposal. Later, one of the mayor's aides approached her and said that the authorities did not want to deal with this issue and that she should not have raised it. After the meeting, Frances Barwood faced mockery in the press from some council colleagues. She and many residents of Phoenix realized that the government had no intention of conducting a serious investigation. On the 13th of March 1997, strange lights appeared in the sky over Phoenix. Thousands of witnesses reported their observations, and many captured these lights on film, which became the primary evidence of the UFO sighting. While the public demanded explanations, the military refused to comment on the situation, and the city government ignored calls for an investigation. Space observers decided to take matters into their own hands. Ted Lohman, one of the most well-known UFO researchers and a metallurgist by profession, nearly lost his sight in an industrial accident in the late 80s. During his recovery, he found time to pursue what had interested him his entire life: ufology. Later, he created a television program dedicated to this topic. I got on television in 1991. In my program, I wanted to tell the whole world that the UFO phenomenon does exist, he shares. Ted Lohman was shocked by the government's refusal to seek an explanation for the lights over Phoenix. Officials from the National Security Air Force provided contradictory and, in the opinion of UFO researchers, false information. The information was very chaotic from the very beginning. We tried to contact the so-called Luke Air Force Base through regular channels. A woman on the other end of the line said they were inundated with calls. Just a few minutes later, they started claiming that absolutely nothing was happening. Then a few months later, they began saying that there were some flares in the area. The Arizona National Security Service initially stated that there were no aircraft in the sky on the 13th of March. However, in May, after critical publications in USA Today, they changed their position, claiming that these were signal flares launched by representatives of the Maryland National Security Service for training purposes. Jim Delitoso, the president of a company engaged in computer graphics for entertainment products and the aerospace industry, is also interested in UFOs. He often collaborates with researchers, analyzing photos and videos documenting alleged encounters. We have been studying UFO images at the request of other researchers for over 20 years. We are like an independent laboratory. Researchers from Russia, Brazil, Canada, and many other countries reach out to us. When in March 1997 the lights appeared over Phoenix, we were evaluating them in this laboratory, not trying to prove that it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Measurements are being conducted to supplement the database. Jim Delitoso, like his colleague Lohman, believes that the Air Force's version of signal flares is not accurate. From a geophysical perspective, analyzing the triangulation survey based on 5 different video recordings, researchers obtain a location that does not match where, according to national security representatives, the signal flares were launched. Furthermore, the launch of signal flares lasted only 10 minutes, while the event of interest lasted several hours on the evening of the 13th of March. The difference, he says, is quite noticeable. He emphasizes, the lights that flew over us that night were absolutely not signal flares. As his experience in Vietnam attests, he has seen missiles launched by downed fighter jets. Signal flares have a characteristic flicker, and they are suspended by parachutes, which prevents them from having a clear geometric shape. Any military pilot will confirm this, he adds, insisting that there must be another explanation. There is a possibility that signal flares did exist, but he believes that something more was happening, a sort of show for the people in the Phoenix area. It lasted too long to be just a series of 5 signal flares, he says. wondering what really happened on the 13th of March, 1997. Thousands of Phoenix residents claim to have seen an alien craft passing overhead around 9 o'clock in the evening. Skeptics question the methods of UFO researchers, arguing that the burden of proof lies with those who report UFOs, not with those who try to debunk them. You must provide evidence that does not allow for another explanation, one that is more logical and probable, he emphasizes. Several months later, the National Security Service finally provided an official explanation for the lights over Phoenix, stating that these phenomena were caused by the maneuvers of an unknown aircraft over southern Arizona. The recording made at 8:30 was the result of the aircraft crossing into the territory of the area. Later, around 10 o'clock, it was signal rockets fired by the Maryland National Security Service, located 810 degrees southeast of Phoenix. Some UFO researchers claim that the signal rockets could have caused the effect observed around 9 in the evening, but they also note that a regular airplane could not have looked like the wedge-shaped flying object that witnesses saw that evening. The development of events resembles a military scenario. If one analyzes the flight trajectory, it is very significant, and if it is continued northwest of Henderson, one can reach the area of Nellis Air Force Base and Area 51. This information is intriguing, as Area 51 is a mecca for UFO researchers, a military base in the Nevada desert that is not marked on government maps. UFO researchers believe that the government is hiding many secrets related to UFOs at this unnamed base. The first reports of unusual phenomena came from the northwest and precisely marked the route. A great deal of speculation was stirred by something moving from Nellis Air Force Base or Area 51, possibly some super-secret spy plane flying in that direction. These sky-watching enthusiasts are convinced that they do not know the exact reason for the appearance of the lights on the 13th of March. The theory about spy planes exists alongside claims about alien spacecraft, and all these theories underscore a certain distrust of the government. The truth is, the main thing we want to find out, he says, adding that perhaps when they obtain it, they will not like it, but it is necessary to know. Many residents of Phoenix, including members of the city council, have expressed a request to investigate what happened. Tom King, a UFO observer, shares his dissatisfaction. I pay taxes into the Treasury and to some extent fund the jet fuel and those jet planes that conduct exercises. And when I have serious questions, I demand specific answers. He emphasizes that there is an unwritten law that while in government, one should not ask questions about such matters. Obviously, something came out that night. Hundreds of people have told me what they saw. They all describe the same thing. What was that? Despite active public protests, the military insists that they have nothing more to say about the lights over Phoenix in March 1997. Do you see this? Look, these are lights. Look, what is this? I can see them well. The story then transports us to the fateful encounter of 3 Texans with an unidentified flying object, which turned their lives upside down and ruined their health. Some of them became UFO enthusiasts after the so-called close encounter, believing they had seen aliens or an alien spacecraft. 2 women recount how their lives changed catastrophically after their encounter with an unidentified spacecraft, and the community of UFO enthusiasts became the only place they could turn to for help. Betty Cash, the owner of a cafe in Dayton, a small town 70 miles north of Houston, recalls her encounter. That evening, on the 29th of December 1980, she and her friend Vicki Landrum, who worked as a waitress for her, set out with her 6-year-old grandson Colby to New Caney, Texas, to play bingo. Upon learning that the game was canceled, they headed back home. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. We turned back to Dayton from New Caney. Suddenly Colby said, "Grandma, what is that bright light?" The light was approaching the highway. Vicki screamed for Betty to stop. She said, "Betty, it's coming right at us, stop." I stopped and got out of the car. I was very curious. After the rain, they could not pull off the road, so they had to stop. Betty stepped onto the shoulder, holding Colby. I hugged him in case he tried to run away from here. At that moment, they saw an object of an unclear shape in the sky, resembling a plane in distress. It was flying directly over the road, emitting streams of heat and flames downward. In shape, it resembled a diamond. It looked like it, and tongues of flame were bursting from its underside. Betty was terribly curious and was going to find out what it was. The light was so bright that it blinded me. I raised my hand and stood like this, trying to figure out everything I could. Vicky kept screaming for Betty to get back in the car, threatening that they would all burn. I grabbed the handle to open the car door, and I got severely burned. The flames from the craft heated the car to such an extent that touching it caused severe burns. Once inside, Betty turned on the air conditioning, as it was becoming unbearably hot inside as well. Gripped by terror, they watched as the craft attempted to regain its course. Finally, it rose above the road, and Betty managed to drive away from that cursed place. The craft rose and fell, and then slowly flew toward Houston. Just as the craft was moving away, we saw helicopters. These were unusual helicopters, similar to those used for landing troops. I had seen ones like that, but only in movies about Vietnam. Betty counted 23 helicopters, while Vicky said there were 21. They were pursuing the ship. They were completely unconcerned about our presence down on the road. The helicopters were moving in the same direction as the ship, and Betty kept track of their direction, noticing that they neither fell behind nor got closer. Dedikesh was driving the car away at a frantic speed, while Vicky Landrum was trying to calm her grandson. Despite having turned onto another road, the strange convoy continued to pursue them. After they had traveled about 16 kilometers, they encountered a whole line of helicopters flying with their searchlights on. These were large helicopters. Betty Cash, despite the burns on her hands, neck, head, and chest, managed to drive the car to Daytona. Vicky had severely burned her face and she was experiencing intense pain in her back. All three were dehydrated and kept drinking water without stopping. At 20, Vicky's son was trying to persuade his mother to go to the hospital and get checked out, but Vicky was afraid that her story would raise suspicion among the doctors. She recalls, "My son begged me to go to the hospital that same evening after I told him what had happened. And I said that if we went to the doctor, they would think we had gone crazy. I felt so bad all night, I was so nauseous." The next morning, she woke up and found a whole strand of her hair on the pillow. Blisters had formed all over her face and body. For several days, the women refused medical help, fearing that they would not be believed. When Betty's condition worsened, she gave in, and all three went to the hospital. They still had no idea how severely they had been affected. At the hospital, Betty's grandson told the doctors that she had supposedly promised to vaporize him if he told anyone anything. The doctors could not explain the origin of the burns on Colby, Vicky Landrum, and Betty Cash, who had suffered the most. All the symptoms that plagued Betty for 3 weeks after the incident were typical of radiation damage, resulting in her losing skin and hair on the irradiated side. She developed diarrhea and vomiting, all classic signs of radiation sickness. Betty asserts, "I don't think she made all this up. She couldn't know such details about second and third degree radiation." The doctors kept asking her where she got these burns and how. Betty adds, "I never even considered that this object could have emitted radiation. At that time, I only knew that radiation was used in cancer treatment." Betty spent more than 1 month in the hospital. After her discharge, she was unable to work and was forced to close her restaurant. "From the very beginning, it was nothing but losses," she says. She went bankrupt due to illnesses caused by the radiation exposure. "I treated her for many years to help her pull through," her son recalls. Later, Betty developed breast cancer, and she underwent a mastectomy. She was uninsured, and her health condition did not allow her to work. It was really terrible. Although the injuries of Vicky Landers and Colby were not as severe, the scars from the burns and vision problems remained for a lifetime. In desperation, the women wrote to Senator Lloyd Bentsen and Congressman Charles Wilson, asking for medical assistance. In response, they received a letter in which Benson and Wilson promised support and advised them not to give up. The letter stated that everyone at the Air Force Base in Bergstrom knew about what had happened and would be happy to help. However, when they reached out there, they were met with rudeness. Officials at the Air Force Base in Bergstrom claimed they knew nothing about the incident and that the only chance they had was to sue the United States government for damages. Strangely enough, the military attempted several times to buy Betty Cash's car, but she refused to sell it. When the rumor about the incident spread in Dayton, Betty and Vicky felt hostility from neighbors and acquaintances. Ultimately, the women turned to the UFO enthusiast community, which became their only hope. Betty Cash and Vicky Landers remained misunderstood by society. The encounter with the spacecraft in 1980 could have been forgotten if not for the UFO enthusiast community. Jum Schuessler, an aerospace engineer and deputy director of the worldwide organization of UFO supporters, was involved in studying and investigating visits from extraterrestrial beings. Several weeks after the incident, the women reached out to Schuessler. At first, he was skeptical until he met Betty Cash. She took off her wig and he noticed large bald patches on her head. At that moment, he realized that something serious had likely happened to her. Schuessler suggested, "If you are open and honest with me and provide the information I am seeking, I am at your disposal until the end of my days." He expressed the need to speak with other people connected to this case and reached out to Vicky Landrum and her grandson Colby. He asked them why they did not go to the hospital after the incident. They, as true Texans, would prefer to endure. Mrs. Landrum noted, "We always endure. I never go to the doctor. If I am sick, I just bear it." This reflected the philosophy of Texans, to avoid medication and medical assistance. After Schuessler listened to their account, he began searching for an explanation for the incident. He and his team returned to the scene of the incident, which the women had not revisited since that time. Each of them pointed to the same spot, even though they had not been there once since that night. Schuessler replayed the scenario of the incident from beginning to end, and soon it became clear what had happened that night. They saw the charred section of road and trees, and the emotions of the people, once again at the scene of the incident, were overwhelming. They were broken and cried as they recalled what had happened. Schuessler began interviewing residents of the area in search of witnesses. During the investigation, it was revealed that one police officer from Dayton and his wife had seen military helicopters in the area on the evening of the 29th of December, 1980. There were other witnesses who insisted they had seen two helicopters that were used exclusively by the government in 1980. However, when Schuessler and his team tried to question the military about the events of that night, they encountered a brick wall. The military was unwilling to even listen to them. This was only the beginning of a long investigation that Schuessler had no idea about. In 1982, he managed to find an important piece of evidence, an official military report on the investigation that had been initiated based on the statements of the two women. Understanding the significance of this evidence, Vicky and Betty hired a reputable attorney. Schuessler noted, "I found this story to be truthful. I have often dealt with people who made up stories about their encounters with UFOs. I do not believe this case was fabricated, and the facts support my assumptions." Almost 6 years after the incident, Betty Cash and Vicky Landrum hoped to achieve justice. They filed a petition with the state attorney's office in Houston, and preliminary hearings were scheduled for August 1986. However, the federal government denied any involvement in these events. All that could be proven was that the women had been injured. The judge closed the case, citing a lack of necessary facts. All hopes collapsed. Ultimately, Betty Cash and Vicky Landrum left Texas to escape the painful memories of the past. 18 years later, when tabloids and local newspapers had grown tired of the story, another UFO researcher continued to seek explanations. He headed to Dayton, Texas, claiming, "This is a very complicated case. There is some kind of mystery here. I have a lot of experience." I have conducted many investigations, including murder investigations. In this case, there is evidence and eyewitness testimonies. One of them, Ten Stork, a police officer from the suburbs of Denver, is actively involved in the UFO enthusiast community and previously served in the Air Force. He shared that during his service, he was forced to sign a document prohibiting the discussion of any events related to UFOs. This involuntary complicity in government cover-up policies made him empathize with the experiences of Betty Cash and Vicki Landrum, who faced the unknown. According to Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and John Schuessler, they witnessed the appearance of a shiny, diamond-shaped object emitting a powerful energy reminiscent of flames. This craft, descending from the sky, radiated radiation and intense heat that melted and burned everything in its path. Even the paint on the roof of their car began to bubble from the exposure. They are now at the scene, and Betty feels that something truly happened here. John Schuessler, who visited the site 3 weeks after the incident, noticed changes in the road. He reported that the section where the contact occurred had been excavated and replaced, despite claims from all road agencies that no work had been done. This raised his suspicions. Schuessler also noted that 6 to 8 weeks later, the same crew returned to the site to excavate and repave the area again. During this work, several centimeters of soil were removed from the surface, and if one looks closely, a sharp change in the structure of the pavement can be observed. This change is only seen in this specific spot on the road, which clearly indicates something more than just a mistake by the road workers. Stork adds that young trees that once grew along the highway have disappeared. In this area, they are absent, while in the distance, at a distance of 50 meters, trees can be seen, possibly even older. This raises questions. Why are there no young trees left in this spot? Were they excavated, and if so, why? Researchers speculate that the United States military might have repaired the road to conceal evidence of the unexplained encounter between Betty Cash and Vicki Landrum. Stork is confident that there are still undisclosed clues and hopes that by continuing to act and pressuring the authorities, they will be able to get answers to many questions. He dreams of finding a person who will not be afraid to confess. I was on that helicopter, I was there, and I deeply regret what happened to those people. Stork emphasizes the importance for UFO enthusiasts to continue working on these issues until the truth is reached. Perhaps this will lead to a government disclosure. When people encounter UFOs, they need help. However, officials at NASA and Bergstrom Air Force Base have refused to comment on this case. Betty and Vicki believe that the government has been lying to them about its non-involvement from the very beginning. Betty expressed her feelings. They destroyed my health, they ruined my life, so what else can they do? Just kill me? And they would probably do it with pleasure, but I am very stubborn and I really want to get justice. I am going to fight until the end. Unfortunately, Betty and Vicki became victims of a secret military program. They went to federal court but lost the case, failing to prove that everything that happened to them was the result of any government actions. Stork believes that they simply succumbed to panic and adds that most reports of UFO encounters turn out to be fraud and deliberate lies. The federal court, in his opinion, agrees with this viewpoint. UFO researchers emphasize that there are too many coincidences in this incident to consider it a fabrication. Strong radiation is not the only evidence of the reality of what happened. This case combines many factors: a large number of eyewitnesses who saw everything with their own eyes, and medical symptoms. This was enough to initiate an investigation, as they believed at the time. One of the witnesses, Tom King, expresses his belief that Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and Colby indeed encountered something unexplainable. He adds that his intuition tells him that the government is directly involved in this. In his opinion, considerable effort is needed to uncover the truth. Nevertheless, critics argue that the simplest facts are lacking to confirm most of the so-called UFO encounters. If insufficient evidence is gathered for an objective analysis, it does not matter how grand your experience seems. People will demand proof that can be believed. Skeptics dismiss conspiracy theories surrounding UFO cases and claim that the government has no reason to hide the truth. Once something has occurred, it can be presented in any light and made to appear very strange. All of this is highly subjective, and the government has every reason to lie, as King asserts, citing numerous instances when it has been caught red-handed. He mentions an incident in Alabama where experiments were conducted on black men, and GIs were taken to the desert in the 40s and 50s loaded with atomic waste. According to him, the government denies everything and he does not trust it, having serious grounds for his skepticism. Furthermore, military officer Robert Dean demands that the government disclose secrets about UFOs, believing that society has the right to know the truth. In the United States and around the world, UFO researchers gather to exchange stories, share new data, and discuss the government's reluctance to comment on these phenomena. Dean, who held high positions in NATO during the 60s, recounts a document marked Top Secret containing information about incidents related to UFOs that, according to him, nearly caused a Third World War. This document primarily concerned the study of contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. During that period, large round objects frequently appeared over Europe, flying in groups and disappearing from NATO radar over the Norwegian Sea. Several times this nearly led to a military confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union. Dean recalls, "One day I realized that UFOs are a reality, not a myth or a legend. It struck me more profoundly than anything before. But fortunately, it did not come to conflict." Dean and his wife Cecilia founded an organization, Stargate International, to prepare and lobby in Congress on issues related to UFOs. Their goal is to uncover the truth about UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence. Dean asserts, "We want to know the truth. This truth has been suppressed for many years, not only by our government, but by virtually every government on the planet. But now, it is time to tell people everything." The aim of their organization is to influence the government and Congress. Dean emphasizes the necessity of holding a hearing in Congress to disclose materials and contemporary evidence regarding UFOs. Although this will not be a direct dialogue with the government, at least they will be able to attract attention to themselves. He believes that the government's policy of denying the existence of UFOs and concealing evidence violates the constitutional rights of citizens of the United States. "I once swore that if necessary, I would give my life to protect the Constitution of the United States. And for me, this is a serious oath," he says, adding that he has gone through many wars that many are not even aware of. For decades, the Constitution of the country has been endangered due to lies and tricks, Dean believes. He is convinced that the government possesses hundreds of facts that could shed light on contacts with UFOs. In his opinion, the press conference held by the United States Air Force in 1997, revealing information about the crash of an alien spacecraft in Roswell, New Mexico, is yet another example of deception. Dean emphasizes, "We are very proud of the support from the community. We are confident that our report has answered many questions, and it is a very logical and convincing answer." He points out the absurdity of the recent statements from the Air Force regarding Roswell, which initially claimed it was a balloon, then refuted this by stating it was a different type of balloon and later explained that it was dummies for testing in emergency situations. "I am telling you and your viewers, we should not tolerate this any longer." Dean questions whether the government of the United States is hiding secrets about UFOs and extraterrestrial civilizations from its citizens. He shares his experience. "I had access to classified materials of paramount importance, with the highest level of secrecy that can possibly exist." He does not believe that the military can keep such materials secret for such a long time, especially secrets like UFOs. Despite many claims regarding military actions, Dean notes that these people cannot present any evidence. Nevertheless, UFO researchers continue to insist that the government is unwilling to disclose secrets and is hiding evidence of extraterrestrial visits. He further describes his current location. We are essentially right next to one of the entrances leading into Area 51. This area is surrounded by numerous myths, and no one knows who is in charge there. I have a feeling that there is probably a huge amount of crashed craft buried out there in the desert. Although Dean has heard numerous stories and read testimonies, he admits, we have no purely physical evidence. He continues, for example, there is no crashed flying saucer from Area 51 that we could present to the other members of society. Most skeptics, while acknowledging the possibility of the existence of other intelligence in the universe, do not believe that it has ever made contact with Earthlings. UFOs exist. People see things that they cannot explain. They have always seen them, and they will always see them. That is normal. Dean asserts that UFOs will exist at least as long as there is something in this universe that is beyond our understanding. If they have already been here, we know what they represent from a technological standpoint. We can only hope that they come to us in peace. He believes that contact has already occurred. I think they walk among us on our planet just like we do. Dean suggests that in the coming millennium, changes in society and power will make people capable of accepting those who have already arrived and those who will arrive. We are all a little afraid of these contacts because we absolutely cannot imagine what to expect from them. We do not know. For UFO researchers, the question is not whether contact will occur, but when it will occur. These people continue to look at the sky and study the stars, conducting their own investigations and trying to pressure the government in search of evidence of extraterrestrial ships. Nevertheless, the question of who populates the skies and what secrets the government is hiding from us remains unsolved.